Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the third chapter of the Road to Latin textbook. So again, the first thing I would recommend you do if you're not using it is take a look at the website I made, Nova Latin. This is where you can find the story. I've put English translations, the cases highlighted button, different videos, just things that'll help you along the way along with my notes. So if you're interested, take a look. There's more that I can give you there than I can in this video. So it might help you along your way as you're working your way, through this textbook. But the first thing I wanted to do before we dive too far into this story is give you a quick recap of the grammar. So the main idea of this chapter is to get you to understand how to ask questions in Latin. So the three things you're really looking at are putting the NE on the end of a question where it's called an enclitic. This is really when you're asking a yes or no question. So the idea here is that the speaker has no idea what the answer is going to be. You're just really asking or expecting a yes or no. None is where you're expecting yes to be the answer. And num is where you're expecting no to be the answer. So there's basically three different types of question words or endings we're going to be using here, and I'll show you as we go through. But it helps you understand how you might use this, if you were to write something in Latin or try to speak something in Latin, and definitely how to translate this story. Apart from this, once you've got the grammar kind of under control, the other thing you need to do is make sure you have the vocab. So I say this at the beginning of all my videos, go to the vocab. Memorize it as best you can. Get all the new words. If you're using my textbook or my website, there's a Quizlet there. There's English derivatives there. There's all sorts of things that'll help you. But it's really hard to translate if you don't know what the words mean. So you have to start there. Then come back and look through the grammar. Again, feel free to read through my notes, do some practice problems. Whatever it is you need to do to help yourself feel comfortable so that you're ready to read and translate this story. Then once you have that kind of background, you want to make sure that you're practicing your reading and your pronunciation and your listening, right? So you want to read the story aloud, work on the pronunciation. If you can find a classmate, that would be ideal. Read the story to them, just completely in Latin, let them listen to it, and then have them read it back to you so you can listen to it too. So you don't want to just cut off that listening skill. It'll help you with your translation, especially if you're reading this out loud. You'll start to get the flow of how the sentences work and how these words all work together. And you'll really catch, by listening, the endings and understand, oh yeah, that's a subject or that's a direct object. So I'd always recommend that you start there. Once you've done all those things and you're ready to read, you'll be in a pretty good place. So let's dive in. So this story is basically a lot of questions followed by answers to those questions. Because again, that's the grammar. It's trying to get you to understand how to ask questions in Latin. So we start by asking this question. You have Estne Villa Americana. Now again, you'll notice that there's an NE on the end of Estne. That's usually how it goes, the enclitic. It just means that you're asking a yes or no question, right? You're not sure what the answer is. So when you say Estne Villa Americana, you're asking, is this an American villa? The answer is Villa non est Americana, right? It's not known as the house, or the villa, you might say, is not American. Or you could translate it, this is not an American villa or house, however you want to do it. You have Villa est Romana. The house is Roman, or it's a Roman house. Okay? Villa Romana casas parvas et multam terram habet. So a Roman house, a Villa Romana, habet, it has casas parvas. That means like small huts, right? Small little dwellings. And if you're looking to the picture to the right, you can see those little huts off to the right-hand side. That might be where the slaves are living, or just little huts you have set up around your property because you have different things going on, particularly if you're farming, right? So it's saying that the house, the Roman house, or the Roman villa, has small huts, and notice how it's plural. It's a direct object. That's why it's blue here. It's accusative plural. And you can tell by the AS endings on it, right? So it has small huts, and it has multam terram, much land, or a lot of land, right? Those are the direct objects of the verb habet. So in other words, you're saying, what does the Roman house have? It has small huts and it has a lot of land. Then you have Villa Romana est Villa Corneliana. So the Roman villa, right, the one in the picture, is the Villa Corneliana, right? The Cornelius's villa, right? The family villa. So it's where our family lives in this story. Villa Corneliana est longa et lata. Right? So the Cornelius's house, right? The Villa Corneliana, right? It's long, longa, and it's wide, lata, right? So it's a big house is what they're getting at. It's a wide house. It's a big house. Then you keep going, right? So it continues on with the next part, and we're going to get into more questions as we go. But you have this question of none. And again, none just means you're asking a question where you're anticipating what the answer is going to be, right? So in this case, you're anticipating a yes answer. So you can translate it as surely. So when you say none Villa Corneliana est magna et pulchra, you're saying surely the Cornelius's house, the Villa Corneliana, is big, magna, and beautiful, pulchra. right? So you're expecting the listener to say, yeah, absolutely it is, right? Which is why we have our response. Villa Corneliana est magna et pulchra. You can almost translate this as yes, right? Yeah, of course. The Villa Corneliana, right? The Cornelius' house is magna, right? Est magna et pulchra. It's big and it's beautiful. So they asked, is it big and beautiful? The answer is yes, it's big and beautiful. Then you have villa columnas habet. So the house has habet columnas. There's our plural direct object. It has columns, right? And you can see them in the picture off to the right. You got a bunch of columns going on in this house. Very typical for a Roman villa. Then you have num casa parva columnas habet. So here the nu means you're asking a question you're expecting no to be the answer. So the main part of this question is casa parva, the small hut, you might say, has columns, right? You're asking, does it have columns, right? Columnas is your direct object. So we know that the villa has columns. Does the little hut? And you're expecting the answer to be no. So one way you can translate this is almost by saying surely not, right? Or you could say surely it doesn't have columns, right? Another way to say it is the little hut doesn't have columns, does it? Right? And again, you're expecting this this answer to be a no, because why would a small little hut have columns, right? And then you have your answer, casa parva columnas non habet. The small hut, the casa parva, right? The small hut doesn't have columns, non habet columnas. So in this first paragraph, you're getting a sense of what these question words or endings mean. You have the any, means you're asking yes or no. You have none, which means you're asking a question where you're thinking yes is going to be the answer. And you have num, where you're asking a question where you're expecting no to be the answer. Then we go on to the second paragraph. You have quis est femina, right? Now, quis is another question word that I think we've seen before, but it means who, right? I've highlighted it red because it is a nominative case. It's called an interrogative pronoun. But for now, just think of it as being the word who, and it's the subject. So you're saying, who is the femina? Who is the woman, right? Who and the woman are both nominative here. So the question is just very simple. Who's the woman? Tullia est femina, right? Tullia is the woman. Nonne Tullia est Romana, right? Again, you're asking that question of surely she is, right? You're expecting a yes. So you can translate nonne as surely. Surely Tullia is Roman. Then you have your answer. Certe Tullia est Romana. Certainly, certe Tullia est Romana. She is Roman. Tullia domina est, right? Tullia is the mistress. And when we say that, it's just trying to get at the idea of the female master, right? So you have the dominus, the master of the house, and then you have his wife, who would call the domina. It's the feminine version of it. So a lot of times you'll see this translated as mistress, right? Sometimes in English it has a different connotation. That's not what it means here. It just means the female master, right? So she's the mistress of the house. Domina multas ancillas habet. So the domina, the mistress, has, what does she have? We need a direct object. Multas ancillas. There's our direct object, our accusative case in blue. She has many slave women, right? So this is where we start to dive into Roman culture. And it's always an interesting topic that you have to address whenever you're dealing with ancient Rome. And you see it a lot in textbooks. The Roman society is based on slavery, right? They have slaves. They need them. The slaves do everything for them. They work, manual labor, helping with the house. So if you were a wealthy Roman, you would have a lot of slaves, which is what this family is, right? They have many slave women in this case. The idea here is that the master, the dominus, would have probably male slaves that he's in charge of, right, and keeping track of, whereas the mistress would really be in charge of the inside of the house, where you're usually having female slaves. And you can see a pretty close connection here to, for instance, pre-Civil War America and the slavery involved there, where you would have the same thing. Inside the house versus outside the house slaves, and there is a male-female element to that. So that's what's going on here when it says the domina, right? The mistress has many slaves. That would be very true. Ancilli laborant, right? The slave women, the ancilli, they work. They are working, you could say, right? Which is true. They would be working and doing whatever the mistress tells them to do. Then you have habet ne Tullia filias. So here we have the any question. You're asking a yes or no. Again, you're not entirely sure. Does she have, right? Habet. It's saying, does Tullia have filias, daughters? That's our direct object. You're almost thinking, what does she have, right? We need an accusative direct object. Filias means daughters. So you're not sure if she does, so you put any on the end of it. Yes or no. Does she have daughters? The answer is yes. Tullia filias habet. Tullia has daughters, right? Cornelia et Secunda filiae sunt. Cornelia and Secunda are the daughters, okay? So if you're wondering what's going on here, there's a good culture unit that I've put on my website that it shows up in other textbooks. I'm not going to say that I've invented it, but one that I use talking about names and Roman names. And the interesting thing here is Secunda. Well, there's two things. One, Cornelia. You're going to learn that the father's Gen's name, his sort of family name, is Cornelius. So one thing you do as a Roman man is if you have a daughter, since she can't really carry on your family name, you would name her after your family name. So his Gen's name, his nomen, is Cornelius, rather. So he names his daughter Cornelia, right? So by hearing a Roman girl's name, you can sometimes tell who her father is. Then you have secunda, which literally means second in Latin. It's a counting word or a number word. And this is interesting because a lot of times they would use this as a nickname, right? So if you have a couple of daughters, maybe you have 3 daughters, you'd probably want to name them all Cornelia in this case after your family, because you're not entirely sure if they're going to live to adulthood. And if they do, you want to make sure that your family name keeps going. So if they all have the name Cornelia, it can get a little tricky. So sometimes you'd give this nickname of secunda, meaning the second Cornelia, right? When it comes to daughters, it's a little mean, right? Basically numbering your children. But the idea here is a cultural thing where you're trying to get at the idea of passing on your family name. So that's why you're seeing the name Secunda here, which literally means second. So the daughters of Tullia are Cornelia and Secunda. Then we have our next question. Stantne Cornelia et Secunda. The any again means you're asking yes or no. Stant means they stand. So you're saying, are Cornelia and Secunda standing, right? The answer, puellae non stant, sed femina stat. So the girls, the puellae, are not standing, non stant, right? And if you look in the picture, I believe they're supposed to be right in the middle where you can see a woman standing with 2 children. I think that's where you're supposed to be looking at, Tullia, the mom, with Cornelia and Secunda. But it's saying the girls are not standing, but the femina, the woman, stat, is standing, right? So it's showing you that the kids are sitting down, the woman is standing up. Again, this is a good way to practice noticing your plural nominative endings, right? Your subject endings. So notice how puellae ends in an AE. There's more than one girl. And look at your verb endings too. Non stant ends in an NT, right? Stant, because you're saying they stand, or in this case, they're not standing. But stat, later on, ends in a T because you're only referring to one person, the femina. So puellae non stant, femina stat, right? You're getting a good practice again on your verb endings. Now we carry on to the last part, right? The last section in this story. You have laborantne agricolae. Again, any, you're saying, are they, right? You're asking yes or no question. Are the agricolae, the farmers, working? Now, real quick, agricola is a really interesting word. It's one of the few words that's a first declension noun, meaning it ends in an A, but it's actually not a feminine word. And we'll dive more into declensions and gender as we go. But there's an interesting thing happening here. So far, the words we've seen ending in A have been referring to women. Agricolae is actually referring to men, right? Farmers. So you're saying, are the farmers working? Agricolae laborant. The farmers are working, right? Yes. Then you have nonne terra agricolas delecta. So surely, again, you're anticipating a yes answer. So surely the ground, the terra, the earth, delights, delectat, the agricolas, the farmers, again, plural direct object, agricolas. So you're saying surely the ground or the earth delights them. Then the answer is yes, terra agricolas delectat, right? The ground or the earth does delight the farmers, okay? Agricolae et terram et silvam amant. So your subject is agricolae, the farmers. What are they doing? Amant, they like or they love. What do they love? Terram, or in this case, et terram, et silvam. Remember, et means both and. So you're saying both the terram, the ground, and the woods, the silvam, right? They love both of them, right? Just outdoorsy people is the idea because they're farmers. Then you have terram nautai non amant. Oh, sorry, I skipped a line rather. It's num terram nautai amant, right? Again, num means you're anticipating a no. And once you translate it, you understand why you're using num. The subject is nautai, sailors. So we're playing on agricolae, farmers who are on land, and nautai, sailors who are on or at sea. And again, nauta, in this case, nautai is another masculine word we'll deal with, right? But it's the subject of this sentence for now. So you're saying, surely, not surely, you'd say the sailors love the land, right? They don't love the land is kind of what you're getting at. You're almost implying, again, that you're going to ask a question where no is going to be the answer. So you could almost say like, sailors don't like the land, do they? Is kind of one way to translate it. Because again, you're expecting the no answer. So by num, you're saying like, they don't really do this, right? So again, one way to translate is to say sailors don't like the land, right? And the answer is terram nautai non ama. No, sailors, non amant, they don't like the terram, the land, right? Which is what you were expecting, because the idea here is, why would a sailor like the land if they're spending so much time on the water, I guess? So again, you're expecting a no answer. Then you have nautas non terra sed aqua delectat. So our subject here is not the first word. And again, this is why we practice looking at noun endings. Don't take it just in order. Nautas is your direct object, so something's happening to the sailors. The subject is terra and aqua, right? So you're saying non terra, not the land, but aqua, sed aqua, right? But the water delights sailors. So really the subject is aqua in this case, but the way you translate is to say not the land, but the water delights, delectat, and you're thinking, who does it delight? The nautas, the sailors. Then we have none, another surely question, right? Yes or no? You're saying surely the villa Corneliana et Tulliam et filias delectat. So surely the Villa Corneliana delights, delectat, and again, who does it delight? Both Tullia and Filias and the daughters, right? So you're saying surely the house, delights this woman and her daughters. And the answer is yes. Villa Corneliana et Tulliam et Filias delectat. So the Villa Corneliana delights both Tullia and her daughters. So again, this chapter has a lot of question words, a lot of repetition, but it's really good for getting at the idea of how you ask a question in Latin, like I said, but it's also playing a lot on what's the difference between a subject and a direct object, right? So pay attention to the endings. Sometimes in different sentences, they're switching between, subjects, direct objects, and you're getting to see the same word with a couple different endings on it. That's really important. So like, for instance, on this slide at the top, we had Agricola laborant, right? The farmers are working, and Agricolas delectat, right? Something is delighting the farmers. So it's really good to keep practicing through. The cases we've seen so far are nominative and accusative, right? Subjects and direct objects, and we've seen them as singular and plural. We've also been playing around with our verb endings, T and NT. Now we're bringing it all together, and we're really getting used to asking questions in Latin. So again, hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments. Feel free to pause the video, go back. If I wasn't clear on anything, just put it in ask me in the comments and I'll help you through. But hopefully you're getting the hang of how these stories go and you're feeling more confident the more that you read and the more that you translate. So again, good luck. Again, practice out loud if you can read it, and just work on, work on your reading, your understanding. Don't get bogged down on word for word translations. Try to let it wash over you and get used to hearing the endings. It'll just make your life so much easier with translation. Good luck.